We are back out here today on the little 1860s cottage rebuild project. Haven't been here in a little over a month between holidays and the snow and sleet and deep freeze. But in the meantime, there's been some progress. Looks like there was a bit of masonry repairs up here. They must have snuck that in on a couple of the warm days we had in between all the cold. And then drywall is done inside. That means we can start the finishes. So let's pop inside and check things out. Venturing inside to where the furnace is on, and it's not too bad. We have doors to install. Drywall's up. Changes the whole feel of the place as it always does, and I gotta say, soffits blend in pretty well. That turned out great. So we're gonna start down here. Got bathroom, closet, bedroom, another closet, pocket door to the bathroom. There's a lot of doors in a small little spot. Feel really changes up here with the drywall on. Definitely more enclosed. So got the bathroom, we got the bedrooms. So big closets in each bedroom. And that's the story. So these are not bad sized bedrooms, all things considered, but they are a little bit on the dark side with only having one window. But honestly, I like a dark room, so that would be just fine with me. Alright, and the hall, if the doors are closed, is definitely dark, but that's what lights are for. So let's get to work. I was out at the office in the backyard, so checking in on the porch, and unfortunately only the gutter and downspout got up before the deep freeze and all the snow and sleet hit, but looks better already, even with just the new gutter and downspout attached. So given the weather, concrete is certainly not happening. Don't know when we'll be back to this, but glad we got some inside work while it's cold. So we're getting our first couple doors installed here, and this one, actually we built the rough opening a little bit wide, so I ended up cutting some 2x4 shims for the side there, but interior hollow core doors are relatively easy to install if you have a good level and square rough opening that's big enough. This one, of course, needs some extra shimming, but the process basically is you get it in, you shim both top corners, get it anchored, and then plumbed down the hinge side. And then after that, you can just come over and line up your reveal on the latch side. So this one actually took a little bit of work. The jamb was slightly bent, but it worked out all right. And then you got a good plumb level install when the door will just hold wherever you set it, like that. So we're in good shape on that one. We're doing kind of a wonky setup here where we actually have split jambs, but the trim is going to change, so we're basically installing it like an uncased pre-hung door. So a little bit more work to make that work, but leaving the trim off will work for painting later, because you can see here that the primer is not even quite on yet. The drywall is just finished, but we did have one annoying thing here. So these doors, when they assemble them, they're done relatively quickly, and you can see they were maybe a little too quick here. They actually shot the trim staple through the door, so that's a bit of a pain. We'll pull that out, but it's actually preventing the door from closing all the way, so I can't get this side quite lined up yet. That should patch up fine. It's a little nick there, but that won't be too big of a deal once they're painted, sanded, cleaned up. So this is the second door we got in. I did the hinge side already, working down the latch side. And then as we come out, we also hung the pocket door from the primary bed to the bath there. And then we don't have the hardware yet, but the closet doors will be on sliders, and they're not a pre-assembled setup, so we'll be mounting up to the top and then attaching the doors essentially the same way as this pocket door here. So once we have that hardware, that really shouldn't be too tough of a task. It's a touch tricky getting these to actually connect, but once you get them lined up right, they go in. So this one is big. I don't remember the actual measurement, but it's actually 3 doors that bypass each other, and then there's sets of 2 doors on the second floor. So I'm gonna get that staple pulled out and we'll see what we got. Alright, so this should pull out pretty easy. Yeah. Coming right through. Nice. Hopefully that's the only one. So we prefer composite shims, and the easiest way to cut these off is just with an oscillating tool. Easy peasy. With wood shims, it's easy to score with a utility knife and snap, or this method, or really anything. And when you got at least 6 shim spots on each side, quickness counts. So on a split jam, if you've never seen it before, it just snaps into a groove. And normally there would be the trim on here, but since we're changing that, it's just the jam piece and the trim that's going on. I think I already said this, but we will wait until after the paint. The primer and painting should be happening next week, I believe. Well, we got all of the regular swinging doors installed, and one of the pocket doors. We're at the end of the day now, so we'll come back and get these closet doors when we have the sliding hardware for the bypassing. But as you can see, the 3 doors in the hall are in place up here. No light, so got my handy dandy work light. And it's going to be interesting to see this when all the doors are closed. It'll be a kind of a dark and closed little hallway here. But you can see down these steps. We ended up not recording most of the work today. Just ended up needing to get production done and got interrupted, and wasn't the smoothest day, but you can see all the doors we got in place here. So that pocket and then the other doors. So nice to have this step done. So the last hinge door is going to go here at the basement steps, and it's going to take a little bit more work because the height ended up just short of what we need, and I don't think the drywallers realized there's a door going here because they usually put corner bead there and around up there. So we are going to just trim a little bit off of this door right here. Hollow core doors actually have a solid bottom and top and just a little bit on each side. So they are trimmable to a small extent, and thankfully we only need a small extent on this. But we will take care of that next time because the sun is setting. Well, the other reason is it's Friday and we honestly don't want to work that hard. Oh, this doesn't have the guide on it. I was gonna open and close it, but fancy. So we worked a total of 1 day this week. We don't want to work too hard. Got a reputation to keep up. So as I mentioned when we were leaving the other day, this space here is not quite right. And the height is the real problem. With drywall, it's sitting at 80 inches. Well, that's the height of the closed door. So ideally, we would have caught that ahead of time, and we could have just framed down in this section here to make it right for the rough opening, but we did not. So we're gonna trim this door, which is really not that big of a deal, except on a hollow core door, they give you 1.25 inch solid all the way around, which means you really can only maximum trim 1 inch, give or take. Don't push your luck. So we needed a little more than that. So I made the initial mark here. You can see that top mark, and that's about 1 5/8 inches. Well, that's not gonna work. I guess we could have like stuffed some MDF back up in there, but we're not gonna do that. So I came up with the bright idea. We're already in kind of a weird situation. Why don't I take the top of the jamb off? Since we already have drywall there, we'll trim around it. It'll look normal when it's done. That picks up 5/8 to 3/4 inch that I can shift down here. And now I'm solidly in the MDF that we can trim. So that raises everything up and maybe makes this a little more complex than would be ideal. But in the end, it works. That trim on the bottom is really not noticeable. And that trim allows enough room for the vinyl plank to go under it nicely and give a little bit of swing room. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this all apart, trim it all up, and then the opening here is actually 35 inches wide, which is a little too wide, but we can take some of the trim that we're no longer going to be using. Well, that's not it, that's the other side of the split jamb, but that will pad it out just right enough that just a little bit of shimming takes care of it. So let's see how it all works out. Meanwhile, Dave is attaching the other half of the split jambs to the jambs with just some brad nails, and he's using air, which is kind of funny because we actually have a cordless brad nailer here, but he brought that for the trim nailer as well, so he doesn't get to use his own tools enough. So just a few doors to take care of with that. Slightly off the line. Alright, so it turns out these Mastercraft doors from Menards only have about 7/8 solid MDF, and we cut that about as close as possible. It'll still work alright, but lesson learned there. I honestly am not a big fan of Menards in any way. I don't shop there, but I didn't buy this door to start with, but maybe this was a place that had the style. I don't know in particular. Either way, thankfully we rarely actually have to trim doors. It's only kind of niche cases like this, but either way, you want to be careful when you're trimming a door because you only get one shot, and thankfully I didn't accidentally go on my original line, otherwise we would have been way into open space, but that would have been any door. So we're gonna fit this on and it should go right how we want it to. I'll also note here that so when we worked out the space, it actually made sense to us at least to justify the door all the way to the latch side and get the hinges as far away from the wall as possible. So it worked out actually pretty nicely, just putting a 2x4 on the flat there, so that 1.5 inch pretty much took up the whole space, and then just needed very minor shimming there. So when you open the door in the fully open position, the doorknob will actually not like go into the drywall to get the door fully open. So we're gonna pick this up, put it on. And so we picked up the door and put it back on the hinges, or put the hinges back together as the case may be. And at the top, like I said, we took it apart, and we'll put the stop back in place so it'll look clean, and then when the casing goes around it, it'll kind of look like it was always meant to be that way. But we got a nice even reveal on top, and then when we open the door, you can see it nicely opens to the wall there. So to complete putting this back together, we need to put the other side of the jamb on the wall here, and that should only require just a little bit of minor shimming since that 2x4 took up most of the space. So we'll give that a shot and see how it works out. Well, with all the hinge doors in place, we are moving on to window sills before the painters get here in a couple days. So we got our first in here, and everyone is a bit of a custom cut. So the depth is pretty similar on most of them, very slightly, but the sides here, I don't know if you can pick that up, all angled just a touch differently. The drywallers on the whole did a fantastic job in here, but the windows, they were kind of working with existing conditions, so that is what it is. This window is actually deeper, and deeper than the material we have, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of a glue up on that. But now that we got the first in place, we kind of got an idea of what we're doing, so gotta keep moving along. So this second one may be the wonkiest opening, and I just trimmed what we need here. Let's see, sliding it in place for the first time. All right, tight to the window, tight to the side, so you can actually see the original 90-degree mark that I put on there. And the trim, I missed there, that could have been a touch tighter, but got that right. And then this side also goes out, and that's right. So on the whole, I am happy with that. So 2 down, and what is there, 8 windows, I think. So the other thing we have to check once we get them cut to size is, are they actually level? And that looks to be pretty close, maybe just a touch off. So a little bit of shimming under takes care of that. So to give you a little sense of what it takes to draw these up and cut them, these are the measurements for the window opening right there where Dave is cleaning up, and this one's kind of all over the place, but goal is to make it look really nice without trying to spend so much time that you drive yourself bonkers trying to get absolute perfection. So I'm gonna cut this up, we'll see how it fits. Got what looks like a hawk hanging out up there on that tree, which, whoop, off, there we go. Doesn't look too healthy at the top of that tree. I don't know. Tough to tell in winter, but hanging out looking for something good to eat. Well, this really fancy schmancy custom cut that I did fits really nicely side to side. I forgot to add an inch onto my measurement for the overhang though, so yep, guess we're gonna redo this. Well, as the old saying goes, do your best, caulk the rest. And I got the board stretcher out. We got this fixed up and fits in place nicely, and this one was actually perfectly level both directions. I'll take that. So those of you with eagle eyes may recognize this as just pine stair treads. So it's made up of finger jointed core, and then there's actually a veneer over it, and then they bullnose it. Now this is the first time I've seen it with a nice veneer like that. When I first looked at it, I thought it was actually a full-size board. I'm like, that's not what it looked like on the internet. Usually it's just finger jointed because a stair like this typically gets painted. Doesn't really matter. If you're doing nice stain, you're probably going to get oak or another hardwood, but it does look nice. And in this case, it works really well for the very basic windowsills that we need here. So no reason to reinvent the wheel here by getting our own router out here and putting the bullnose on. We can just trim it to size, and despite the one window right there being too deep, the depth is really nice for the padded out walls. So this for something, if you're doing something like this, great choice. You could even do miter on the returns if you wanted to. In this case, owner just wanted it nice and simple, no even mitered returns, and I won't complain about that. Well, I can definitely tell it's a Monday. The reverse inch monster got me again. Good thing we had 10 and we only need 8. So as I mentioned, we need to glue this piece up and make it a little wider, and I was going to take it home and use some tight bond, let it sit overnight. Then I realized we got subfloor adhesive with us, and maybe it's not the typical use, but it should put a tenacious bond and we can get it done really quickly and today and not have to come back. So we're going to give it a try. If for some reason it messes up and doesn't work right, we'll just use this board in its original form for one of the other windowsills. So just applied the adhesive, and we'll, here, let's roll this over.
Let's go.
Yep, down and in. So we'll get these nicely lined up. And then we didn't have any clamps with us today because we weren't expecting to be doing any clamping. So we got a little workbench clamp set up here with just 2x4s and wedges. Yeah, it looks good and tight. It's a little tighter down at this end. You can always put a little shim in there. So this should work out pretty nicely. It sets up in like 10 minutes or so, but we'll give it a little longer than that and may need just a little bit of sanding over it, but we got a palm sander, so we'll check in a little bit. There we go. Nice and wedge tight. So I guess this was a pro tip. So the final step on the sills is just some trim nails to hold them in place. And problem with the hose? Or the nail gun? Well, okay. Yeah. Well, maybe not. Alright, well, good thing we're almost... Good thing that's the second to last. I guess you're taking that apart and figuring out what the heck just happened.
I don't think the cylinder came all the way back up.
That's what it sounded like. Well, good thing they're actually relatively simple machines. Yep, so that's exactly what happened. The little hammer driver thing did not recede. Alright, we are back in business, thankfully. This is our glued up extended piece. Gonna get a test fit after cutting it here. See what we got. That slides in just right. Alright, looks like it maybe needs a little bit of leveling first. So here's the glued up piece in place, and just a slight gap on the right side there, but otherwise you can't even tell that we put two pieces together there. So that turned out pretty nicely. Well, we have all the windowsills in place, got the doors in place. I think they look pretty good. So painters are here in a couple days. They stopped by today to check things out, so they'll be spraying primer, and then I think it's just one color on the whole thing. The buyer can customize as they see fit. So looking pretty good in here and really coming along nicely. So that'll wrap things up for now until we're back for the rest of the finish work. Base, trim, cabinets, and various other things. But that'll be a little bit. Got to get the floor down, paint. So off to another job. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed things. If you haven't already done so, we'd really appreciate a like and a subscription. And thanks for rebuilding with us, and we will see you guys on the next video.